welcome this regular meeting of the BOE Meeting Board of Education. It is 7:00 p.m. and we are at 35353 Curtis Boulevard in East Lake, Ohio at the new administration building. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal? Here. Mr. Jones? Here. Mrs. Paczynski?
Here.
Warner?
Here.
Here.
Thank you. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you can see, Mr. Thompson is not here. He is with his son. He recently graduated from the University of Pittsburgh. So we are very blessed to have Mr. Chuck Murphy, the Assistant Superintendent, who will do the honors.
Absolutely, thank you, Madam President. This is one of our favorite board meetings of the year, to be able to hear and honor some of our best and brightest in our high schools. And today we're very fortunate to hear about some of our awesome students at North High School. And here to tell us a little bit more about it is the building principal at North High School, Mr. Eric Fry.
Thank you. Madam President, fellow board members, Mr. Murphy, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the North High School top 10 seniors for the class of 2019. This is a tremendously accomplished group of young students, and we're just thrilled to be able to honor them in this way this evening. You'll immediately notice a couple of unique aspects of this year's class. First, we have 2 sets of identical twins being honored, which doubles the pride of those families. Also, due to a tie, we actually have 11 students being recognized in our top 10 this year, so that was interesting. Students, as I call your name, what I'm going to ask you to do is come up. Mr. Lyons is going to be standing here. He's going to hand you your plaque. You're going to shake his hand. You're going to turn for a nice picture. And then you're going to slide down to the other end of the table, facing this way, uncomfortably for about 15 to 20 minutes while we read the rest of the students. And then at the end, we'll get a nice group picture. All right, everybody know what to do? All right, no pressure on our first student, but that is going to be David Arnold. David, come on up. David is joined tonight by his mom, Julie, his dad, Robert, and his grandma, Judy. While at North, David was involved with the yearbook and the school newspaper. He plans on attending Cleveland State University to study game design. David Arnold. Now we have Jared Arnold. Following is going to sound very familiar. Jared is joined tonight by his mom, dad, and grandma. And while at North, he was involved in yearbook and the school newspaper. He also plans on attending Cleveland State University to study game design. All right. Next, we have Lydia Blackman. Lydia is supported tonight by her parents, Shanti and Frank, her brother and sister, Scott and Katya, her aunts, Diane and Helen, and her cousins, Ashley, Holly, and Jeffrey. While at North, Lydia was involved in cross country, marching band, track, National Honor Society, and Tri-M Music Honor Society. She plans on attending Rochester Institute of Technology to study biomedical engineering. Lydia Black. Next, we have Sophia Blackman. Sophia is supported by the same loving family members as her sister. She was involved in marching band, track, National Honor Society, Tri-M Music Honor Society, and Art Club. She plans on attending Miami University to study architecture. Sophia Black. we have Colin Christopher. Colin is joined tonight by his mom, Jerry, his stepdad, David, and his grandma, Maria. While at North, Colin was a member of the football team, the lacrosse team, and National Honor Society. He plans on attending the Ohio State University and studying criminal justice. Next up, we have Jody Dalton. Jody is joined by her mom, Jeannie, her sister, Shelley, and her boyfriend, Corbin. While at North, Jody was a full-time participant in College Credit Plus. She plans on attending Cleveland State University and studying psychology. Congratulations. Next, Nicole Economou. Nicole is supported tonight by her mom, Sue, and her brother and sister, Billy and Lexi. While at North, she was involved in art club, foreign language club, and academic decathlon. She will be attending the University of Florida and studying biochemistry. Congratulations. Next up, we have Mackenzie Hammond. Mackenzie is joined tonight by her mom, Adrian, and her dad, Michael. She was a member of NHS, volunteered at too many school events to count, and was a member of the soccer and basketball teams. Mackenzie will be attending Cleveland State University after finishing her associate's degree at Lakeland and studying finance. Congratulations, Mackenzie. Hannah Humphrey. Hannah is supported tonight by her mom, Jessica, and her dad, Philip, and her grandparents, Brian and Kathy. She participated in marching band, NHS, Tri-M, Project Sales, and was the treasurer for class council. She will be attending Oberlin College and studying math and political science. And finally tonight, our last student who is here this evening, Justin Panchula. Justin is represented tonight by his mom, Lynanne, and his father, Martin. He was a member of marching band, pep band, drama club, and NHS. Justin will be attending the University of Cincinnati and studying aerospace engineering. One final honoree who couldn't make it tonight because he didn't want to miss work, which is great. That's Jason Turk. Jason was extremely busy during his time at North as well, participating in drama, quiz bowl, academic decathlon, and volunteers club, and he will be attending Bowling Green State University in the fall, pursuing a degree in mathematics. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have one more round of applause for our entire group of amazing I'd like to remind our seniors and their guests that although you are welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, you are also free to leave at this time and enjoy the rest of your evening. So,
Those who want group photos,
Mrs. Beal, do you want to do a group photo?
We're done with Mr. Fry. No such luck. He has another presentation for us, and I'm excited to hear about some of the good things that have gone on this year at North High School as he presents some of the data that he's been collecting this year. So,
absolutely, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. I won't take up a ton of your time, but I do want to share a couple of great things that I feel like we did at North this year. The first is going to involve some data we collected from, based off of some instructional building goals we set at the beginning of the year as a staff, and some of the observational data we collected throughout the year to see how we were doing on meeting those goals. And then I'd like to also include some information about our air testing program for remediation that we initiated for our seniors this year. We had some tremendous success, and I want to take a moment to highlight that as well. All right, so first of all, at the beginning of the school year, we as a staff decided on some instructional things we wanted to focus on. The first was that we would have daily learning targets that were grounded in content standards, as opposed to following along with what the textbook says we're supposed to teach next, but really focusing on what the standards for each content area say we are supposed to be, the kids are supposed to be learning, and then making sure that we're actually following through with that on a daily basis. All right, so that was the first goal that we set up together. The second was that we would actually use research-based best practices in the classroom every day. And one of the models we used for that was the work by Robert Marzano and his classroom instruction that works. There's other effective strategies as well, but that's what we were focusing on for our observations in our walkthroughs. And also we looked to increase the level of student engagement across the board, all grade levels and all subject areas. So that was our focus for the year. So throughout the school year, my assistant principals and I tried to spend as much time as we could in classrooms, walking through and doing observations. A typical walkthrough in a classroom is maybe 5 to 7, maybe 10 minutes tops, and you're just going in and you're looking for things. And some of those things we're looking for were obviously highlighted on the previous screen. And so throughout those walkthroughs, about 150 of them documented, probably many more just that we didn't get documented, but that we did. We gathered some pretty decent data. We saw that learning targets aligned to content standards were posted or verbalized 62% of the time. Now, sometimes, depending on when you come into the lesson, if you miss the first 5 minutes, it may be verbalized, but then not observed if it's not posted. So the number could be a little bit higher, but it's also something we're going to work on for next year, as we'll see in a moment. One of the 9 Marzano strategies was being utilized 68% of the time, which I think is fantastic, considering that it's just 9 strategies and that there are many more research-based strategies that were being utilized at various times as well. But our tool highlighted Marzano strategies, so that's where we put our focus. And students were engaged as a class 76% of the time. And so, that's our observational data from there. So, in looking at that data, it's helping us put together a plan for next year. Because it's not just collecting the data necessarily, but what are you going to do with it? How are you going to use this to improve our program? And so the first thing we're going to look at is obviously increasing the use of learning targets based on those content standards, posted in kid-friendly terms in every classroom, every period of every day. And that's a very reasonable goal. If you look down to professional development, one of the things we're going to do in our new building is we're going to identify board space in every room that's going to be dedicated to where that standard is going to be posted. What is today's learning target? And so that way there's some consistency. And as kids are coming and going through the various new classrooms in the building, they're going to know where to look for that learning target. We learned that a lot of our teachers are putting together opening presentations with slides like this that included the learning target, and they were discussing it with the kids, but then it didn't remain up. They moved on in their presentation, and then it wasn't something that the kids could look up and see and can consistently refer to kind of check for understanding even themselves. So that's something we're going to work on for next school year. Also, as we were walking through, we noticed that the teachers, in my estimation, in my observational data, weren't utilizing formative assessments enough. And I think part of that was because it wasn't something that we stressed before. And a formative assessment sounds more intimidating than it needs to be. It's truly just a check for understanding. So at least once a class period, we're going to expect that every teacher is formatively assessing to whether or not their students are mastering that learning target for that day. And that can take a lot of different forms. It could be an exit slip at the end of class where the students respond to a prompt. It could be a class-wide thumbs up, thumbs down, where are we at here? I've seen a couple of teachers in my building have red and green and yellow cards, laminated cards, and as they're moving around the room, they have the students put the card that describes their level of comfort with that material in the upper right-hand corner of their desk. so that the kids can not have to verbalize in front of the entire class that they need some help, and that the teacher can see that as they walk around. So that's another way you can formatively assess. So there's lots of different ways, and as you can see from the PD statement at the bottom, we're going to investigate a lot of different ways to do that in the classroom. And then as administrators and doing our walkthroughs, it's something we're going to monitor heavily next year and help our teachers with. And I think that'll be a good plan, a good focus. So next year we'll be focusing on learning targets posted in kid-friendly terms daily in every classroom, and then assessing formatively every day to ensure that our kids are getting those standards at the level that they need to. And the second part of this data presentation involves the work we did to address the need of our seniors to pass the air test. Last July, we realized that the state legislature was not going to, at that time at least, renew the alternative pathways to graduation that had been in existence for the previous 2 school years. So our group of current seniors this year were under the highest of stakes in terms of testing, because if they didn't get the required number of points needed to graduate, they weren't going to graduate. And so we had almost 100 seniors that were in this boat that needed various tests and points within tests. You can see it's pretty complicated, and I probably need to get some of those future math majors we had lined up here to come in and explain this in perfect detail. But basically we have 7 end of course exams. Kids need 18 points spread out in various ways across those 7 tests. And they take the test the year that they have the course. So it makes sense. But 6 of those tests are taken by the time the student has finished their sophomore year. So if you've got juniors and seniors still in need of points on those tests, the challenge is they're going to sit for a test, in which case they may not have had any remediation for that class for at least a year, possibly 2. And so it was crucial that we find a way to get those kids the help they need to pass those tests. Historically, what we had done was we had prepped kids for the December or spring retakes by offering content area teachers to stay after school and schedule small group tutoring sessions for kids who voluntarily came. And you can imagine how well voluntary attendance was at remediation classes for state testing. And so historically, very few kids actually scored a 3 or higher when they retook one of these tests. Usually it was less than 10% across the entire group of kids retaking. And so that form of remediation wasn't working. But because of the pathways, it kind of glossed over that problem. All right, but take away the pathways and all of a sudden it became a crisis. So we decided to approach it differently this year. And we hired full-time tutors to work in the building, and kids were assigned remediation classes specific to either math or English. Since 4 of the 7 tests were math or English, we decided to put our resources there. And so Andrew Shue was the math teacher that we brought on board. And we'll talk about the success that the 2 teachers had in a moment, but in preparation for this, I asked them, what was your class like? How was it set up? What did you focus on? And so in Mr. Shue's case, he said that the key in his estimation was, like we talked about earlier, focusing on standards and then grading based on the mastery of those standards, as opposed to just a percentage of problems answered correctly on a test. And also something key was that he used numerous short, frequent assessments. Every Friday was quiz day in his class, and it was just 3 to 5 questions. And then those 3 to 5 questions mirrored what those kids were expected to answer on the air test for that specific skill. And so another thing was they could retake those assessments anytime throughout the semester. So the kids were retaking frequently, constantly seeing the same types of questions, and this actually had a spiraling effect where they were always reviewing what they needed for the whole year. And so that was a unique aspect of his class as well. He also was he stressed the importance of fostering a growth mindset with his kids. The idea that through hard work you can improve. And that's not something that all of our kids walk into the door with, especially by the time they get to high school. And finally, he was very focused on giving specific individual feedback as often as he could for every kid in that class. So not just generalizing as to what is everybody doing wrong collectively, but what are you needing help with as an individual, right? And so I asked Mr. Hsu what he thought the single greatest factor that led to the success he had was. And his quote was, "I think it really just comes down to being positive. I genuinely believe all people can not only learn, but even enjoy mathematics if it is approached and explored in the right way. But so many students, and frankly adults, have just lost hope that math is something that they can succeed in. I don't really know how to combat what seems to be a belief held by nearly all people of all ages, but I just always try to be encouraging and supportive and really stress those moments that truly shine." And I think we can all, relate to that idea that, oh, math's just not my thing. And when I sit down and help my third grade daughter and my sixth grade stepdaughter, I find the same thing happens. And so, but I think it's just, we had a student, give you an example, she didn't need to take the class anymore after she got her required points. And then she was given the opportunity of taking a study hall or something else. And she said, "No, I want to stay in this class because it's the first time in the last 3 years I've actually been learning math." And so I thought that was just a cool example of how this idea of building up and being positive and developing that growth mindset really works. Yes.
I would like to add to that because as I mentioned earlier, my daughter was missing that 1 point. And as a parent, I could try to find a tutor that would teach her the general basics of math, but it was so valuable to have someone who was, unfortunately teaching to a test and spending that extra time, and for her to actually be required to go take that class versus me trying to schedule when she could go and have tutoring lessons done. And this man, Andrew Hsu, I can speak for him because my daughter had him, was phenomenal. I mean, like you said, to have people who, like my daughter, who can't stand math, as you can see, she was missing a point, but she, luckily, because this year started off, no senior should start this year off the way they did, those 100 students, and she did get that 1 point because of him. She got that 1 point. And I don't know, had we just gotten a regular tutor, if that could have happened, to be honest with you. So I am very grateful for that man who, she's graduating. So.
Yeah, he's fantastic. In fact, math, just to tell you an idea, he graduated from Case with a degree in math in 2 years. So he actually just turned 21 this school year. So he's a superstar. And if you look carefully at your board agenda, you'll see he's being added on as a full-time math teacher. So
He's well liked by, in the marching, he's
Oh, yeah.
well liked by every.
He's our Sheldon.
yeah, that's fantastic. Equally fantastic was our English tutor at the time, Megan Kennedy. And I went through the same routine with her as well. I asked her, why were you successful? How did you set up your class? And her focus in English was assessment, analysis, and action. She wanted to give the kids short assessments to find out where they're at, look at that data that she herself collected, and then design lessons that supported what those kids needed individually. So they spent time breaking down existing test questions. She divided up her class amongst this, looking at the reading portions, developing annotation skills that the kids were at that point sorely lacking, multiple choice tests or multiple choice questions and how to answer those, and then of course looking at constructing an essay. And in fact, they even went back to and really examined the 5-paragraph argumentative essay structure, giving them a format to use. One of the things that she felt from watching the kids in their practice test was they just weren't writing enough. They weren't taking the time to develop their answers thoroughly, and it was hurting them on those tests. She modeled the skills that they needed to do well on that test. She showed them how to do it. She watched them do it together, and then they discussed it as a class, and they had opportunities to do it as individuals. In the previous, she would look at the previous tests and analyze that data. She noticed that they were particularly weak in author's purpose and citing textual evidence. So those were areas that they spent a lot of time on. They had daily practice bell ringers that were small sample test questions. They focused on informational text and they read and they wrote every single day. And that's amazingly, I don't know that that happens in every English class. You know, we get into our novels, we get into our, you know, our Shakespeare and things like that, and sometimes the focus gets away from reading and writing. Not saying those other things aren't important, but we got to make sure we're focusing on those skills that are going to translate to any grade and to any future endeavor. And then students also looked at student work on past air tests, graded it together using rubrics, and then talked about why the students got the grades that they got. And so, similarly, Megan was asked what the single greatest factor was in her class, the success that they had. And she said, I wouldn't say there was a single greatest factor. I think it was a combination of pressure, understanding, essay structure, and confidence. I tried to make sure students' confidence was high. Many of them felt they were in my class and weren't going to graduate because they were dumb. And so I made sure to boost their confidence by showing their improvement each week on each assignment or making positive comments on their essays. So again, relationships, positive, building confidence, and it was just the same thing that was happening in Mr. Shu's math class was happening in Miss Kennedy's English class, and you'll notice her name on this board agenda as well, as she's our new English teacher. So how did it all play out? As you can see, remember, our previous remediation scores were less than 10% proficiency, and in our English class, 72% of the kids that retook the air test that took her intervention class passed with a 3 or higher. And in Mr. Shu's class, 68% of the students that took his class that retook the air test got a 3 or higher. So it's tremendous improvement. It was a phenomenal use of resources, and it scored us 2 amazing teachers. So that concludes my presentation. Any questions or comments from anybody who wants to do it?
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Ben Bentabona from AECom to give us a construction update. We shouldn't have too many more of these, huh? No pressure.
No pressure. I will note that. Don't be applauded for my name. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a wonderful meeting to have these students, these young men and women. And I'm so glad whoever started to applaud the parents. Okay, so we're going to see if I can do this without jumping it up. Thank you. All right. So, first building we're going to talk about is north. We're moving along, clicking along. We can get you in this building. Next class and first grade class, and you're going to cut that ribbon on August 10th. This is the outside of the building on the front. You've seen this 3 weeks ago. The bricks on the return on the left wasn't done. The sidewalks definitely weren't done. As soon as we got a crack in the weather, the exterior work really started to take off in a big way. Auditorium. This is on the stage looking back towards the back of the auditorium. Where's Rob at? He has seen this. Good man. Lights are in. The above ceiling rough-in is probably 99% done, which means we can now get in there and spray that deck, spray the structure, hang the acoustic panels, and then we can start wrestling with the seats and the lighting in the seats and the flooring. There's a lot of work going on in that auditorium. This is the vestibule. If you were in the parking lot looking at the vestibule between the classroom and the administration, I think this picture is important because we finally got the storefront and curtain walls. They finally were fabricated. They've shown up. The crates right in the bottom of the picture of the windows, those are in now. We need some trim and we need some caulk, and it was 100% out of the way there. The second floor, this is actually at the top of the collaborative stairs looking into the media center. All that drywall's been taped. This time next week for sure, the painting will be, if not underway, if not done, certainly underway. And we are pretty soon going to see, this is all glass on the third wall, and the floor of that soffit. So it's not the library. Some of us grew up with this is a media center, so it's a lot different. And there's a lot of natural light coming from the inside of that courtyard, which isn't shown in this picture. Gymnasium, all the gym equipment is up, all the painting is done. The floor that all the high spots have been ground down, the low spots have been filled in, and the wood flooring, we expect the wood flooring to show up, if not this week, but at the beginning of next week. They'll spread it out, get it acclimated, and then we'll get that flooring underway. This is the atrium in the humanities wing. This is probably the most farthest along in terms of finishes in the building. Painting is almost done. Ceiling grid is probably 95% done. Casework's going in, the floors are going in on the second floor. And on the bottom, on the floor, there's a whole lot of other aluminum storefront. Again, that finally showed up, they finally got it fabricated. In the kitchen, the hood's up, the walk-in coolers are going in, the above ceiling mechanicals are well underway. Won't be long before we see the drop to the ceiling going in, and in a minute we'll see the floor. None of this can happen soon. This is from, our back is to the softball fields. We're looking at the building, right to the bridge, which in another week and a half, you'll be looking through the windows on the bridge because the lobby is framed in now. We're trying to get the roofer back to get the roofing done. That's the last piece on this building that needs roofing, is the bridge. But in the meantime, the brick, if we probably got 10 to 15 days of dry weather in a row, all the brick veneer would be 100% done, and they've been cleaning it. So my prediction is next month, we're going to try to get a picture from the same perspective. The bridge will be done, the brick veneer will be done, and all the mess in front of the building will be out of there. Probably going to be seen topsoil. In front of the kitchen, just between the kitchen and the student dining, the servery, all the steel stud framing is up, above ceiling rough-ins are done. We're trying to finalize some of the welded duct now that the hood is in. Once that's done, it gets insulated, the ceiling starts to go in, and then we'll be seeing the floors arrive there as well. Atrium in the stem wing. On the left-hand side, drywall's up, sanded, painted, ready to go. We're waiting for the drop the ceilings, probably just beginning this week, and then we'll be beginning the floors there. In the meantime, on the other side of the wing, drywall's done, it's up, it's taped, they're trying to get the last finishes done, and then they'll start painting there as well. These are really nice spaces. If you get a chance to get in the building, it's really, it sounds funny to say, it's really pretty. Just open and airy and delightful. Stem wing, area A, the bricks in. The plastic that you see there is, I think, Friday, we took these pictures Thursday, I think Friday, the plastic came down, and they started to put the storefront and the framing in the doors. So it's moving along well on the outside. This is the same atrium and stem wing taken from downstairs. You can see on the right-hand side everything's painted. You can't tell, but if you look on the second floor to the left, you can see that the drywall still just sanded, tape sanded, finished, waiting for the paint to catch up the drywall. This is a picture of the student dining area, that round barrel. It's not a barrel. The Italians have not taken over the main wine anymore. But that's the smoothie station, all wrapped with plywood, and then Marlite panels with a nice, beautiful. The architects did a good job for us as a district. That will be all wrapped with Marlite. We are ready to start painting the structure that you see, whatever's going to be exposed. After that, the drop to the ceiling will go in, and will be a mad dash to get the flooring in and the finishes and the veneer on the collaborative stairs, and get us done in time for ribbon cutting on August 10th. Longfellow is quite a bit farther along, second grade classroom. You can see the collaborative screen. That's that white square on the wall with a projector mounted to it. Comes out like, in a roll like wallpaper. It's magnetic. It serves as a marker board. It serves as a projector screen without the hardware, without the instructions in the way. It's really kind of neat. The furniture is in place. We even got the flag in. The collaborative area is outside the second floor. There's still a couple things there. We still got to do a little cleanup. Cleaning, the second round and the final round of cleaning at Longfellow began, let's say Monday, began today. It'll be done Friday. So we'll be 100% out of the cleaning stage, and then we'll get the architects in for a punch list and go down and check whatever they want us to correct. Fourth grade classroom, again, furniture's there. We're down to cleaning, everything's in place, the accessories are there. We're ready in those areas to get the staff and students in as soon as we get the cleaning. What's not done here yet is the countertops on top of the lockers. They're ordered. They're supposed to be here at the beginning of next week, a week from today, and it probably won't take them more than that entire building. I'll probably do a day and a half to get those in place. The gym at Longfellow Elementary is pretty much done. The only thing we need in there is probably one final mopping of the floor, dust mop more than anything else, and everything else is in there. The sound system, the projector, the screen, all the equipment, the scoreboard, the floor painting, everything is finished. Kindergarten collaborative area, with the exception of the cardboard on the countertop and the lockers that still need their countertops, this area is also, this area is completely clean today. So we're finished, not finished. It's done, we're waiting for the, as soon as we get the whole building clean, we'll get the architect punch list. The kitchen, all the equipment's in, the kitchen, it's been started, it's been commissioned. If it wasn't for the dust on the equipment, which is being cleaned today, and protect the floor, we're trying to protect that floor for as long as we can. We could actually go in there and prepare a meal. And I'm looking forward to being there when that first one's done. Kindergarten classroom, again, it's done. Furniture here was all pushed off to the side or taken out of the room. That's why it's not in place, so that the seating company can get in there, do the final sweeping of the rugs, cleaning of the floors, and then we'll be set. Second floor media center. He paid extra to get his picture and paid in the image there. Really good guy. They're finishing the floor on the second floor was done. That blue curved wall, again, gets Marlite panels, revealed, and the countertop. That could not go in until it was, that couldn't be ordered until it was up, and they had to get accurate dimensions. So we hope to have that in there in the next week and a half. The winding stair from the main lobby going up to the second floor, that's been done. They still have to sand out a couple of the joints, and then we'll get the painters in there. Some drywall repairs that we have to do that are associated with that. The walls underneath the stairs for the display cabinets started to go in Friday. They should be done. If they weren't done today, they'll be done probably by noon tomorrow. The drywall will go up. We'll get that sanded finished. And the goal by the end of this week is to have this whole area ready for the painters to come back. Well, they're not going to come back. We'll have it ready for them to come back. And then we'll be good to go. Student dining, with the exception of the same thing here. By the end of this week, this whole place will lobby clean. Everything in there is done, except where you can see that one duct that's extending that had nothing up or left. It might be difficult to see there. There was a duct that whenever it kicked on, the light fixture next to it would start to move. Very mysterious. It was actually just the air coming out of the diffuser. So we talked to the architect and the engineer. He said probably the simplest solution is to just lower that duct, make it a little lower, which is what they did. Painters got to get up to the paint. So teacher workroom, done again. In fact, I think this area was cleaned today as well. So that's all ready to go. The only thing we need is an occupancy permit and teacher. The painters will be back. They want to be back very last thing because they don't want to come back and then have us moving around and moving a chair and leaning something against the wall, and then the architect comes in and says, we got a nick over here and a scratch over there. So once the cleaners are done and all the furniture is in its final position, then the painters can come in and do all the touch-ups, and then there's high-performance paint in the hallways that'll go in, and that is difficult to touch up because it's pretty dirty. So, and we agree with that approach. That's pretty pragmatic. So that's what we will do there. We'll follow that same kind of reasoning, same kind of progression. At South, it's in great shape. I haven't been there for about a week, but I talked to John this afternoon about 3 o'clock. Classroom wing, basically the painting is done. They're down to some remaining pieces of wall that have to be finalized, have to be painted. But in probably sometime in the beginning of June, they're going to have the architects out there to do the punch list, which means they're ready to go. Somebody come in, inspect it, give us a list of what has to be corrected, and they'll take it from there. Classroom wing, the corridor, we're ready there. They're ready there to just do the final coat paint and get the base in, and then again, they'll be the same kind of progression where at Longfellow, get that done and clean and get back into the final touch-up. Administrative offices, ceilings are gone in. They're going to get those final cuts around the edge, get the final painting done, and then they'll get started on the flooring. Exterior, the storefront and curtain walls are in. They're installing doors, they're installing the trim, they're installing the top parapet on the roof to get that all buttoned up. A lot of concrete has gone in, a lot of sidewalks. They expect asphalt, if all goes well, in the next 3 weeks. And that's weather dependent. They'll be ready. It's just a matter of whether the plants can get out there and whether the weather cooperates. This has been a very wet April. If you look back at the weather in April, it's just unseasonably good. Student dining, the hoods are in, the kitchen equipment's in. Looks messy in this picture, but they're a lot better off. The above ceiling rough ends are being done. They're ready to start ceilings, prop good ceilings. As soon as they're done with that, then they'll get right on the floor. Student dining, again, that floor, the fourth floor has been done. The above ceiling roughing is done. They want to get going on the drop grid ceiling. The gym, the competition gym, all the painting's done, the equipment's in. All the roughing mechanicals are in. The floor right now is acclimated. This floor is actually underway. So he thinks, John thinks in the next 2.5 weeks, the floor, they may not have it completely lined, but the floor will be down and be sanded and be ready for them to come in with their, the striping. Field house, the elevated track is in. This floor is already underway as well. Painting is done. He thinks the field house and the track are really in good shape in terms of schedule. The competition pool, all the decks for this pool, as well as the next image we're going to show for the grading pool. All the decks have been poured. Painting is getting done. What you don't see is there's an awful lot of piping, an awful lot of equipment going on in the background in the mechanical rooms. Both these pools will be ready to fill long before they're full. He's planning on filling August 2nd. And I said, why are you waiting so long? You're going to be done. Just get it done and get it out of the way. As soon as you start filling the pool, you have to have a full-time lifeguard. So the Y is asked to hold that off as long as possible, so they don't have to take that commitment out right away. But you can see all the features are in place. The guys in this picture are just finishing the deck around the top. The Y, all the framing is probably 95% done. They're working on rough ends. As soon as they get that done, they'll start hanging drywall. This is a picture, it's a couple days old. The wood floor in the aerobics room for the senior center is done. It's all in place. It still has to be sanded out and sealed, but the wood floor installation itself is complete. Another shot of the exterior, all the sidewalks that are in. If the weather had been a little bit more cooperative, we'd see topsoil in all the planting areas. The contractor is really struggling with topsoil. He's got a huge pile of it, which was all your topsoil to begin with. He said, you can't leave it here. You got to get it out of here and deal with it. The problem is it's so wet. April was so wet they can't screen it effectively. So it comes out clumpy. So they're trying to turn it over and get it dry. As soon as it does, like they've got a lot of it at Longfellow, and was able to work out. They had a few hours where it was dry enough. They screened it enough to get over to us, but they're going to have to do a lot more to get all three of these done. So, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. I think the level of quality of the work here in all three buildings is really pretty good. And I'd be honest with you, if I was unhappy with something, I'd let you know. And the level of cooperation between the contractors is pretty amazing. I think I've said it, all you need is one contractor and a dozen that decides he or she wants to be a problem or consider radical if there's something you have a real issue. So we haven't had any of that. We're pretty pleased. So we bought everybody lunch about 3 weeks ago at North. We had 113 guys, a couple women, and went very, very well, and they actually thank you very, very much. A couple bucks we spent on that lunch and not buy the goodwill because they were thanking us a week later. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer. You're very welcome.
Awesome.
Have a good evening.
Before we go to the public comments section, and see if there is anyone who would like to speak. The board's been working on ways so that we can respond in a timely fashion, respond in a public fashion. to the questions and concerns that are brought before us. So not only reading that, you have to register your intention to participate, which we read every time we have a meeting. At the arrival of the meeting, you're requested to put your name, your address, and your group affiliation, if possible, on the piece of paper. And each statement made by the participant shall last no more than 3 minutes. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer, and no person may address or question board members individually. And the portion of the meeting during which participation of the public is invited would be limited to 20 minutes. So that's what we have been saying for, since we got our board docs to use for board meetings. So we're going to add to that to make sure that it's clear to everybody, and it will be placed on this board docs document too, so anybody can get on board docs to read. We're going to add a little bit so that it's very clear what we are here to do and how we want to listen and respond to the public and their concerns. So if you're planning to make a comment or ask a question at a board meeting, we would remind you again that you're attending a business meeting of the Willoughby Lake City Schools Board of Education. We do the same thing every month. Those of you who are stalwart and have been here all the time, every month we do board business, and it's the same thing. So while we want your comments and questions, because they are being asked in a public forum, you will receive a response at a subsequent public meeting held by the board, typically at the next month's meeting. However, you may, and we believe you might deserve to have a response sooner. So we are changing our public request to speak form, and on that form we are going to ask that you put besides your name and your address, which doesn't really help us, we have to dig to get phone numbers and emails from that. So if you would like a response sooner than the next public meeting, we would like you to add your email and your phone number, and there will be a little box, yes, I want a response sooner than that public meeting. We will still respond, so the public is hearing your questions, and the public will hear the answers at the next meeting. However, we understand your concerns are important to you, so if you would like an answer sooner than the next public meeting, you just check that box and we will get back to you in a timely manner. So that should help all of us. We'll also have a piece of paper documented with your name, address, and phone number on it, and that you are interested in a public response. So that's what we're trying. We had a work session at the end of April, spent a lot of time individually talking to other school boards, hearing what other school boards do, and so we're trying to be proactive and help us in this situation. So just to let you know that. So I read everything I can read. So Mr. Parkinson, is there anyone who would like to speak?
Just one, Madam President, Mrs. Dana Reed.
Okay, Mrs. Reed. And Danielle, it's not on the form now, so if you want a response, just let Mr. Parkinson know. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danielle Reed, and I live at 36077 Reeves Road in Eastlake. And as you mentioned, the school board just recently had the work session held on April 30th, and it brought up two great topics of interest to me, which is both communication and bullying. And I wish I could have been there at that meeting just to sit in and listen, but from what I read online, I missed a good one. Communication is really important to me. And throughout the administration's evaluation reports, it says that the communication is the biggest problem area with this administration. And admittedly so, the superintendent himself has publicly admitted several times that that is his biggest headache in the morning, is how to communicate more effectively. And throughout the evaluation reports, it continues to state that the administration needs to continue to build stronger relationships, not only with the board, but with other administrators, internal and external stakeholders. Dating back to 2016 in the evaluation reports, it states that, again, communication needs to be worked on and delivered to all stakeholders in the district. forwarding to January 2018, that communication is the key to a very successful organization, and that the board believes that in order to better support the superintendent in his role, communication needs to be even better. And in there, it also says, we suggest no surprises or on either side. So was it a surprise or a lie that the superintendent, who you just secured a 5-year contract renewal, was in fact actively seeking employment elsewhere when I am emailed on March 19, 2019, 8 questions? Number 5 being, is it true or false that the superintendent was interested in applying and/or did in fact apply for a superintendent's position elsewhere? If true, please explain. And the response was, with the superintendent CC, along with Mrs. Claire and Ms. Martell, that the answer was no public record exists, that the board has no evidence to support this statement. So my question to this school board is, was that a surprise to you all, or was it a lie? I am looking for total communication and complete transparency. I don't seem to be getting that on either both the communication topic or the topic of bullying. That's why these both are so important to me. How is this behind backdoor behavior building stronger relationships, trust, and transparency, not only between the leader of this district and the school board, but also with the public? Requiring your phone numbers as you want to take your phone numbers off is completely understandable for communication. However, in my personal opinion, emailing only takes out the human element of building relationships and understanding emotions from people and the level of their passion and concern on certain topics that you cannot get in a text or an email. So again, I think that diminishes the relationship aspect of things. And I was also told by the president herself, as well as Mr. Beal's wife, that there wasn't a whole lot of phone calls and this coming to the board. So that kind of confuses me just a little bit of taking out phone numbers. I think it's a very personal aspect. Really quick, as far as the bullying goes, again, another lie to me personally. I have been told for years, that there has been a bullying prevention committee in this district. There is not one. There never was one. It was a lie. So I am so excited and thankful that this school board has taken a work session, because we got a lot of work to do on both communication and bullying, and I really respect your efforts, and I hope to be a part of that bullying prevention program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Okay, I have at least 3 or 4 questions, and Danielle, you want a response sooner than the next board meeting?
Sure.
Okay, and we have your phone number and email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, sure, you're welcome. No one else to speak? Mr. Parkinson?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We go to section 2, the minutes. We're looking for approval of the minutes of the meeting on April 8th, 2019.
Madam President?
Sorry, Mrs. Perchinsky.
Yes,
It's okay.
I'm ready. I look to approve the minutes of April 8, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Jones?
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting April 8th, 2019. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mr.
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Abstain. Motion has carried. Item 2B, minutes, approval of the minutes from the April 30th, 2019 meeting. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern?
I make the motion to approve item 2B, approval of the minutes of April 30th, 2019.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones?
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting April 30th, 2019. Is there any discussion?
I have a relevant point. We, as a board, we all split up selected school districts to talk to and evaluate for multiple different topics: bullying, communication, any threats of violence, any fighting, any aggression in schools, anything like that, substance abuse concerns. We had a wide lens of kind of what we were asking some of these school boards. I am an independently licensed mental health provider and a substance use provider. I understand that bullying is also connected to a lot of, when kids are bullying, when kids are bullied and threatened, there's a mental health component to that as well. There's a spike in anxiety, depression throughout the schools. In my research in the schools that I talked to, found out that a large number of our area schools are trying to work with Crossroads. And every school district can't work with Crossroads because Crossroads has, a limited staff per se. So it just kind of made us more knowledgeable about what other school districts are doing, who they're looking for mental health services for their students, and gave us more information on what we need to do as a district, looking at that kind of in a full perspective view. So that was good information for our whole board to be kind of aware of and knowing.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there anything else? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Pachinski?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Parkinson, the treasurer's report?
I'll just start with my section and when I get the forecast out. So the first item on my agenda is the first resolution necessary for the November ballot. There are a lot of questions as to why would the board consider placing a ballot question in November when we don't know the outcome of August. And it's simple, it's the Ohio Revised Code. Ohio Revised Code sets the deadlines for when certain things can be filed. And it's not possible for the Board of Education to know what the outcome of the August levy is before it can file for November. So typically what I do in these instances is I have the board consider consecutive levy requests so that if August should fail, the Board of Education is ready to go for a November request. This resolution is the first of two. Boards are required to independently consider and approve two resolutions at two different meetings. This one simply goes to the county auditor's office and asks the county auditor to certify the values of the school district. And then from that valuation, determine how much revenue will be generated from the request. The second resolution, which will be on next agenda, is the resolution that places the ballot question on the November. So, the first item, and of course, if the August should pass, it's a matter of a simple resolution the board would adopt. I can take that to the Board of Elections, and the Board of Elections just literally crosses the November ballot. November question on the ballot. So with that, the first item requires a
So we are on Treasurer's Report 3A, a resolution declaring it necessary to levy an additional tax for the purpose of current expenses and requesting the Lake County Auditor to certify the total current tax valuation of the school district and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by the additional levy pursuant to sections 5705.03 and 5705.21 of the revised code. I'm looking for a motion.
Madam President,
Dr. Gale.
I move that we pass resolution number 3A.
You don't want to read it?
I can.
No, you don't have to, unless people want to hear Thank you, Dr. Beal. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones?
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve 3A, a resolution declaring it necessary to protect people in records. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Perkins, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ernst?
Yes.
Mrs. Ford?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Next item for your consideration is the financial report ending April 30th. The information can be found in Exhibit B. The next item for your consideration is the amended appropriations for the current fiscal year. That information can be found under item C. Item D is the certificate of estimated resources, which comes from the county auditor's office. That information can be found under item D. Next up is 5-year forecast. May is typically an update. October is the one where there's a lot of research that goes into it. May is typically, and I've done this for 20 years, is an update that I do for the Board of Education to kind of look at revenue, expenses, make some adjustments, and kind of prepare the board for what might come forward, either the budget and or the October 5-year forecast. So there's always qualifiers, qualifications. I feel like a lawyer sometimes. So just because I show a number doesn't mean it's going to be there in perpetuity and forever. All sorts of things will likely. To reiterate to the public, I do get a lot of these questions where we're building all these buildings, spending a lot of money. How could you run out of money? The construction funds and operating levy funds are completely separated in Ohio Revised Code. Section 3318 controls bond monies. Section 5705 controls operating levies. The two shall never meet. I cannot mix the money, I cannot transfer money, I can't do anything with the money. Even, I'm not saying that they would, even if the Board of Education were directing me to move the money, I cannot, it's illegal. So all the money from the bond is held independent of the district's operations. Okay, so for the forecast, I will start off with the revenues, general, the property taxes going to state funding, other revenues, and then move on to expenses. What you're looking at, the graph, are valuations of the school district, and you can see the recession. So valuations will always lag real-time adjustments made to housing values or commercial property. So it took a few years for the recession to actually get onto the books. And you can see, once the recession did hit the books, the valuations dropped significantly. And they hung around basically the same type of value, the same level of value for a number of years. Now with property taxes, with school districts, there's what's called House Bill 920. Regardless of what happens to those values, that chart can look however it can look, we will always collect the same amount of money. One example that I give is New York City kicked out Amazon to build a second world headquarters. And I say, what if Amazon were to come right here into the Liberty Eastlake School District? How much new money would we get from Google investing billions of dollars from their world headquarters? And the answer is zero. Zero, zero, zero. The same is true if Pulte Homes or Ryan Homes came in and they put in 1,000 new homes or 10,000 new homes within the school district's borders. We would collect zero new money. All those new homeowners would, yes, pay property taxes, but they would also lower everybody else's property taxes, so that I collect exactly the same amount of dollars in perpetuity forever, never to change. That's the same thing with business taxes. Amazon comes in, they get a big fat property tax bill, and they pay it. They also lower all the other businesses' property taxes, so that I collect exactly the same amount of money. That's forever. My revenue graph will always stay flat, and that's set in the Ohio Constitution. That never, ever, never, ever changes. You could be the best fiscal manager, you could be the best businessman, you could be the best whatever. Eventually, your expenditure line will cross the revenue line. That's why school districts are always on the ballot. We're no exception. Our revenue just like every other school district's revenue, is flat in the Ohio Constitution. So right now, we're deficit spending. And I'll get into more on that a little bit later. But where this does affect the school district is what's called inside millage. So under the Ohio Constitution, 10 mills are allowed to be assessed by political subdivisions of the state of Ohio without the voted people. That equates to 10 mills. This school district has 4.8 of those mills. And 4.8 of those mills moves when values go up and down. So as you see the values go up and down, that portion, the 4.8 mills, our revenue will go up and down based on that. But the other 57.62 mills stays, that revenue collects is exactly the same forever. Looking ahead, you can kind of see there's almost like two steps. In Ohio, properties are valued every 6 years, where the county auditor must physically visit every single parcel of property within the county and assess the value. Lake County just did that for 2018. So what you see here is basically a 3-year cycle. The county will look at markets for homes and look at markets for businesses and make adjustments. And that's 19, 20, 21. 22 is, okay, we're going through that cycle. County auditor looks at all the property and our values get bumped up. This is important because, one, it affects inside millage, but two, it also reflects that the district is recovering from the financial recession as far as valuations are concerned. We look at the past, you can see the recession, the class 1, basically what that is residences and agriculture. They dropped significantly in 2012, and then from there, it basically flatlined for the next 5 years. What I'm looking at moving forward is about a 1% increase. There was about 0.5%, and it was negligible negative for a number of years. But I'm forecasting about 1% and about 1.5% in 2021. How do I know that? The Department of Taxation publishes what they call median market to price ratio target. And they do that for every community within the state of Ohio. And their target is 94%. What does that mean? That means the value that are on the county auditor's books have to be within 94% of what the market actually is selling those homes for. So if we take a look at East Lake, Willoughby, Willoughby Hills, and Willowick, those are the statistical significant communities within the school district. Lakeline, Timberlake, statistically they're insignificant for purposes of this calculation. And if we take a look at the ratios, based on what the Department of Taxation is saying, East Lake is supposed to go up by almost 5%, Willoughby almost 7%, Willoughby Hills about 6.5%, and Willowick about the same. So I look at this information, and I can see that I think housing values are going to start to come up for the school district. And that translates into me guessing about a 1% overall increase for all residential values within the school district. If we take a look at the median home price, and I did nothing more than just average East Lake, Willoughby, Willoughby Hills, and Willowick, again, only for statistical significance purposes. We look at, you can see that the median home value in the school district is slowly climbing. So you can see that the recession is fading away, recovery is kicking in, and home values are starting to tick up. The other thing that I noticed are there are 713 homes for sale within the school district, which is a very good thing. Before, when we were in the recession, the number of homes for sale was very little, and the values were plummeting quite significantly. So these are the things I look at. It tells me that things are recovering, things are on the up now, and so financially, for the community, it's looking good. The other component to revenue collections are collection rates. Basically, is everybody in here gets a property tax bill. The collection rate is, do people pay it or not pay it? So if you look at the past, about 96% of the taxpayers, both residential and business, or this is just residential, have paid it. In 17 and 18, the reason why it spiked way up is the county basically bought what you call the accounts receivables, or sold the accounts receivables to a company. And that company is then going out to collect all the back taxes. So that upfront money that the county received, we basically got a check from the county for the delinquencies. So that's why, when you look at, well, how much am I supposed to receive, what we received was greater than what the books say, and that's why, because the delinquencies were paid in full. So moving forward, I'm expecting about 99% of the taxes to be paid on the residential side. Right now, I don't see any reason for me to go back to a 96 or a 97% rate, at least not in the short term. Looking at the businesses, the property, same thing with them, the property values low, the values kept on dropping year after year after year. Same thing, I'm estimating about a 0.5% increase in the valuation years and a 1% increase when the county auditor comes out and look at properties. Just like with residences, businesses have collection rates. I'm projecting almost a 91% collection rate. Historically, our collection rates from our business community haven't been that great. 73% is low, but they have been coming back. That 106%, the amount of delinquencies that we're collecting, most of that is from the community. So here are the delinquency collections. The county auditor gives all school districts this information. You can see it kind of peaked in 2016 as a result of the county program, and it's gone down steadily. Obviously, as your collection rates go up, the amount of taxes that are going to be behind gets smaller and smaller, so I can't project huge delinquency collections year in, year out. So the collections will slowly decline from the $1.8 million. So all these property values are being driven by 5 emergency levies passed prior to 1976. Just for historical purposes, last calendar year, we had 2 issues on the ballot. We had issue 4 and 5. Excuse me, 2 emergency levies. One was passed. One generates $7.6 million. The other one generates about 6. Represents about 14% of our school district's revenue that comes in. We take a look at all of the emergency levies we have. We have 3 10-year levies and we have 3 5-year levies. You can see the expiration dates. And I'll get into more why these expiration dates are important to know and why we're going in 2019 as opposed to 2020. Just a little thing about emergency levies. Because they can never be continuing, we have to always go to the public for renewals. This costs the district money. This August, it's going to cost us $44,000 to place it on a ballot. In November, it's probably going to cost us another $44,000. For whatever reason, the General Assembly has said that in any odd number year, if political subdivisions have questions on the ballot, those political subdivisions pay. So we're paying $44,000. In even number years, the county picks up that cost. But I'll get into more of why we're going to 19 versus 2020 here in a few minutes. So, you know, as we look at cash balances and expenses, putting 5 emergency levies on the ballot 17 times in the next 20 years is going to add up to a lot of money being spent on just passing renewals. Take a look at the millage. Emergency levy 1 through 5. Levies passed prior to 1976. It equates to about 57 mils. So a lot of people, I get questions from a lot of people that say, hey, why does the school district keep raising my taxes? Well, there are other things on the ballot or on your property tax bill besides the school district. So the school district is about 62 mils all in. 4.8 mils of inside millage, as I spoke to before, 3.36 mils, which is the bonds, section 3318 of the Ohio Revised Code. That was passed by the voters at 3.99 mils. So we have 0.64 mils difference between what was passed and what we actually need to repay the debt when we have the PI fund. The county itself has 16.78 mils on your property tax bill, and that gets all divided up between various entities within the county. The Board of Alcohol, Drugs, and Mental Health is 1.6, the Metro Parks is 2.8, Crime Lab, Lakeland, Narcotics, Senior Citizens, Child Welfare, so on and so forth. And then it depends on where you live. So you take the school district, you add in the county, and then you add in your particular municipality. So if you're lucky enough to live in Timberlake or Wade Hill, you're paying over 20 mils in property taxes just to the municipality. Little Wick is pretty close, down near 20 mils if you live in Loveland. So your property tax bill, it depends on where you live and what's going on, and maybe what's going on in the county as to why your tax bill may go up or down. First Energy. As the board knows, First Energy has been a major point of contention with the school district, particularly when it comes to valuation. So in 2014, First Energy shut down the plant, citing costly EPA regulations, and as a result, they paid taxes on a valuation that was 55% lower than what the county had on the books. Long story short, both us and the county appealed to the Board of Tax Appeals in Columbus, and we reached a settlement. The settlement was for a certain valuation to be on the county auditor's books for 3 years, and that took us through tax year 2018. And as a result, the valuations went up by 61%, which resulted in better revenue collections for the school district, because unlike business taxes and residential taxes, public utility taxes are different, and they're taxed at the full value, and they move with valuations. So we take a look at where we were with First Energy back in 2009, we were a little over $100 million. In 2014, we hit $45 million. We hit a settlement, and now we're at $122 million for the public utility. I'm forecasting that valuation goes down a little bit per year. We'll see. I haven't heard anything from the county as far as First Energy is concerned. So if we continue at $122 million, then that's going to be a bonus. But it's kind of hard to predict what First Energy is going to do. So for now, I'm going to show a decrease just in case. And then if things turn around, I can always come back and do an adjustment later. State funding. So now we've talked about property taxes and how those property taxes work, that they're always flat in perpetuity, never ever to change, except for a new levy request. The second biggest component to our revenue stream is state funding. And basically, to simplify it, it's nothing more than the state looking at how property rich you are and how many students you have. And then they run that through their formula and they spit out a number. There was some talk in the state earlier this year about a brand new funding formula. Personally, I don't see that going anywhere anytime soon. I think for now it's dead until maybe the governor might want to take it up in the next biennial budget. So I'm not assuming any new formula. I'm just going to assume what is on the books now is going to continue for the next 5 years. There's been some talk about the governor and the General Assembly fooling around with some of the individual components and maybe changing some things that might be positive for schools. I haven't seen anything concrete yet, other than just a single number from either OSBA or ASBO. That doesn't really mean anything because I don't know what's included and not included. So I kind of throw those numbers out until I see the entire complete formula and see all the details. So we know what the values are going to be for the school district, because we talked about that with property taxes. Now let's take a look at enrollment. Little Eastlake has been losing about 1% of its student population per year in the last 11 years. So if you look at the last 3, the last 5, the last 10, we've lost a good deal of number of students. What I'm doing moving forward is I'm assuming, since we've lost about 1% over the last 11 years, I'm taking that 1% loss and I'm moving it out for the next 5. I don't see this trend reversing. If we get a bump, we might get a little bit of a bump up, but it's not going to make a significant impact on state funding or to the financial revenue stream of the school district. Other components that I took into consideration with state funding, as you can see, no major changes, basically just following the state funding formula. Homestead rollback. What that is a 12.5% credit on your property tax bill. So if you go to County Auditor's website, pull up your name or pull up your address, you'll take a look at your property tax bill, you'll see a gross tax, and then you'll see a 12.5% reduction. That is a reimbursement to the school district the state makes to us. So residences, all residents in the state of Ohio, they get the 12.5%, and then you cut the check to the county treasurer. That information goes from the county to the Department of Taxation. The Department of Taxation then takes a look at that information from the county and says, oh, okay, Willoughby East Lake is due $8.77 million. Basically cuts us 2 checks a year based on that information. However, when Kasich was governor, the General Assembly passed a law, Kasich signed it into law, and basically it says no new levies can receive 12.5% rollback reimbursement from the state of Ohio. So a mill that I would forecast of money that would generate for the school district is now going to generate 12.5% less for the school district on new levies. Renewals and substitute levies don't count, but on new levies, that's 12.5% that we won't see on state rollback. Property tax payers still get the 12.5% reduction on the property tax bill. We just won't get the reimbursement from the state of Ohio. Another major component is the tangible personal property reimbursements. This is significant. We used to collect about $8.3 million from the state of Ohio. If we take a look at revenue between 2011 and 2023, cumulatively, we would have lost $76 million in reimbursements from the state of Ohio. This is why we're on the ballot in August, because we've lost $8.3 million of money from the state of Ohio. It's something that it's too significant of a revenue stream to do without. That $8.3 million that we're losing in TPP is about 4.99 mils that we're asking for. So we're just asking to be made whole with the new levy powers. All the revenue that we collect outside of the other categories, nothing significant, basically following historical trends, nothing that's out of the ordinary. Interest income is going to continue to grow because interest rates are rising, so that's going to be a nice growth for us with other revenue. And you can see the interest rates published by the state of Ohio. They've gone up significantly in the past 5 years, from 0.06 from minus 0 to a little over 2.5%. Okay, salaries. All of the labor agreements were renewed. So the language for the new labor agreements is now in the 5-year forecast. 1.5% increase, step and call movements. Substitutes are typically 3% of salaries. Department meetings, payments, no real change there. Same with classified, 1.5% increase. Insurance, we are self-insured. What that means is we don't pay a fully insured monthly premium to Medical Mutual. We pay paid claims. So we're a big enough organization where we can insure ourselves. And we work with a company called DS Benefits to help us monitor and manage our healthcare plan. And this, quite honestly, is a huge factor as to why the district has been very popular in cash flow for the last, I'd say, since 2011. Because we're self-insured, we can take what's called a premium holiday. So basically, every month we get a report from Medical Mutual that says, okay, here are the number of claims that came through the system, whether it's doctor visits, hospital visits, dental exams, hearing exams, vision exams, prescriptions, all those things, we get a report and it says, okay, this costs X. So we need to fund those costs with dollars. And basically how I do that is every month on the board agenda, you'll see me transfer from what I call a 035 fund. And I move money from the general fund to the 035 fund. And the 035 fund is what pays all those claims, doctor visits, the hospital visits, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I do with DS is we take a look at the cash balance that we have in that particular fund. And we employ an actuary, contractual. And that actuary takes a look at our paid claims. That actuary takes a look at the number of people that we're insuring, not only employees, but all their dependents. And takes a look at how old they are, what sort of illnesses have occurred, what sort of surgeries have occurred. Takes all that information and says, okay, at the end of the year, you need $2 million in your self-insured bank account. And so if I'm sitting at $3 million, or I'm sitting at $3.5 million, or $4 million, I can do what's called a premium holiday. So basically, I don't transfer money from the general fund to the 035 fund. The 035 fund has significant and sufficient enough cash to pay claims without getting an infusion of cash from the general fund. So when I do that, it saves the general fund about $600,000. It just depends on what's going on. So that is built into the 5-year forecast. It's one premium holiday. Is it possible to have 2 or 3 or 4? Sure. It just depends on paid claims. If we have a very healthy plan year, then yeah, I can have 2 or 3 or 4 premium holidays. I'm not promising it, but it's not out of the ordinary. Neither is one. We have typically averaged 1 or 2 every year very easily. So I don't see any reason why we couldn't continue that assumption moving forward. I did build a 11% increase in medical costs. All the employee contributions are per the dental agreement or the labor agreements. And you can see all the other things that are incorporated. Retirement is per the labor agreements and fiberglass code. BWC, we are going to save 43%. We work in a group program with other employers in the area, and we've done very well. We've had very low BWC claims, and as a result, we're going to save 43% of our costs. Purchase services, what are those things? Those are things like your utilities, Peterman bus contract, any sort of third-party service that we use is in this particular line item. Because of the financial condition of the school district, Steve and I met before he left to be with his son. We're going to cap purchase services at 2% going into next year. So what that means is if other things like utilities and other fixed costs are going up, then other contractual services are going to go down, so that purchase services as a whole is only going to grow at 2%, because we cannot afford to have that move up much beyond 2%. Supplies, same deal. We're going to cap that at 1%. If other areas need to have certain supply needs, that's great. And other supply needs are going to have to come down, so that supplies don't go greater than 1%. And we do not have any textbook adoptions assumed in the 5-year forecast. Capital equipment, very little comes out of the general fund. We've done a few projects out of the PI fund because we've had a little bit of cash balance, but about $250,000 a year in capital. Debt, those are the 5 areas of debt that the general fund pays for. The 2013 note is going to be due for refinance here next year. So I'll be meeting with bond counsel, and if 2017 is any indication, I'm expecting to save about $800 to $1 million in interest costs when I go ahead and refinance that. All the other fees, county auditor, treasurer fees, the county auditor makes his living by giving me a check for property taxes. He takes a cut right off the top. Election expenses are in there, liability insurance. We are audited by the state of Ohio. They take their cut. That comes out of there. Banks, because we have basically a checking account with U.S. Bank, they take their cut too. So all those types of expenses are in there. So we look at total expenditures. They're growing about 3.5% per year. And that's mostly driven to labor costs. Education is very labor intensive. We have teachers, we have aides, we have custodians, we have administration. There are all sorts of people that we employ to educate kids, and education is expensive. And it's true with every single school district. You're not going to find a school district that has 30% labor and 70% supplies and materials. They don't exist. So we're a typical school district, 80% labor, and most of the costs are going up because we have costs. Actual cash balances for the past 5 years, they've been going up steadily. Unfortunately, that's going to reverse very quickly. So there's a layered approach to cash balances going forward. This first one is, what if the new levy, we don't have a new levy on the ballot? Well, we're 24 million in hole in 5 years. And again, that's easily explained. Revenue, flat. Expenses going up. So that's us. We're deficit spending right now, meaning we're spending more than what we're taking in. We're living off of our cash reserves, and that's going to go away forward. Here are the renewal levies coming up between the next 10 years. So there's 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. That's in 17. That need to be passed for just keeping our revenue going. Now, this graph, Steve and I have been going out to staff meetings and presenting information to the staff about the levy, financial information. And this is one of the graphs that we show them. The blue graph is if we pass in 2019. The green graph is if we wait till 2020. And the reason is, district fiscal years run from July 1st to June 30th. Taxes operate from January 1st to December 31st. So if we pass a levy in 2019, it doesn't start collecting until January 1st of 2020. January 1st, 2020 is my halfway point of my fiscal year. So when you hear me or Steve say, we only were going to receive half collections, well, we're going to receive half of the full collections in one fiscal year. When we get to the next fiscal year, we'll have July through December collections, and then January through December collections. That is full collections. So if we take a look at this, and we take a look at all the renewals that we have to pass, if we go in 2020, we're going to be in deficit by 2023. The last one's a mistake, it should say 2020. So in 2023, we're in deficit spending. In 2022, we'd have to be on the ballot in 2021 to get half collections in 2022 to be in 2023. But if we take a look at renewals, if we wait till 2020, are we really going to pass new money now, in 2020, then renew in 22, 2 times, and then renew again in 23, and then ask for new money, and then I'll be back on the ballot again in 24, and be back on the ballot in 28 and 29. So A few people have said, hey, you're trying to sneak this through. It has nothing to do with sneaking. It has to do with cash flow. We're on 2019, we're trying to do it twice to give us 2 chances to try to start new money collections in 2020 so that we're avoiding this problem, which is passing new money in 2020, passing new money again in 22, renewal 22, renew 22, renew 23, renew 24. That's why we're in 2019. So we take a look at 5-year forecast. The new levy is built into the 5-year forecast. Those are the cash balances with the new money, 4.99 mils. We'll go from about $11 million down to about 5.6. And that is the 5-year forecast. Questions? Yes.
I just have a comment. When it comes to understanding all this, it's very overwhelming. As my daughter, I'm not good at math, so he has been a godsend of breaking things down for me when I have a question. I asked that, and I've had a friend who, when we had a levy renewal last year, she did not want to put a sign in her yard. I asked why, because she has 2 children in the district, and she said, these are my reasons, da-da-da-da, and I said, it's better you hear it, if you don't mind, to give Bill a call. Just talk to him for 10 minutes, and if you still feel that same way, I totally respect your decision, but at least you took the time to get the facts, and he'll break it down for you. So if you know anybody who's, whether they're against it or it, and they want to be able to understand things better, tell them to email Bill. He's always been very open. Email, call him, and he will break it down to you as far as you need to go, as he has done with himself. And then you make your decisions based on facts. And that, I think, is so important, especially looking, we can't afford to have people voting on false information. We need to hear it straight from his mouth. And you know, just by hearing him tonight, this is about as transparent, and he is very knowledgeable of what he does. So that would be my comment.
I did sit down with a resident not that long ago, and I just, this particular person just wanted to know, didn't know, he was frustrated with schools being on the ballot. So basically I shared with him my spreadsheets and went through all the calculations. And I played with the valuations to say, okay, throw in $5 billion into our valuation, throw in $10 billion. And the spreadsheet showed flat collections. It doesn't matter. So I think that helped. And then when you plug that into the state funding formula, I didn't get too deep into the weeds of the funding formula. But one of the quirks of the funding formula is, as values go up, the state assumes that we're richer and get new money. But that isn't true because of the Constitution. So because our values are increasing, we're actually receiving less state funding. But we're not actually receiving any new money from property taxes. But yeah, if people want to sit down, look at all these great spreadsheets, I'll sit down all day. It's fun.
You enjoy it.
Well, my mother-in-law comes to my house a lot, so I like
Talk a little louder, my recording didn't get
You're not going to share any news with her. She's
Real interview job, and you're all standing here with their mouths open at the depth of his Excel spreadsheets. It was awesome. So I'm guessing you would like us to look for a motion and second this?
Sure.
Okay. We are on to 3E, the 5-year forecast. I'm looking for a motion to accept Mr. Parkinson's presentation and numbers. This is Vern? No, this is Vern. This is Virginia. Sorry, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to pass 3E, 5-year forecast.
Is there a second?
Madam President, I will second.
Now that's.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 3E, the 5-year forecast. Is there any discussion?
I have to say, Bill, kudos on the presentation. What a nice way to do that. So I have to say, well done.
Anything else? Hearing none, Mr. Perkins, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Dr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf?
Yes, the motion is carried. Mr. Parkinson,
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, next item for your consideration is the Shapley Group Retrospective Rating Program. That's the BWC program that I referred to. This is what's going to save us 43%. So this will be a new contract for the upcoming school year.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. We're looking for a motion to approve item 3F, Group Retrospective Rating Program. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones.
I motion to approve item 3F, group retrospective.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Madam President.
Dr. Deal. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 3F, Group Retrospective Rating Program. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Deal?
Yes.
Mrs. Jazinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, next item for consideration is the Northwest Ohio Computer Association. This is the organization that supports state software, i.e. my financial system. So they house the financial system. It is stored there in store. There are support groups that run issues.
You have heard Mr. Parkinson's recommendation. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam President.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Zern. You have the floor.
Okay, I'd like to make the motion to approve item 3AG, the Northwest Ohio Computer Association contract.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Jazinski. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 3G, the, don't try to say something, NWOC and Milwaukee contract. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Jazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Deal?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Parkinson?
Thank you, Madam President. Next, members of the board, next item for your consideration are purchase orders and blanket certificates. There's one purchase order for your consideration, and that is to Den Design. And then there are several Den House certificates for your consideration under the Den Design request. Next up is item I, is the RSVP levy budget modification. We're basically the fiscal agent for this particular organization. And as such, when they adjust the budget, we have to present that modification budget for consideration. And so the next item are returns of advances. There's one for your consideration, and that's from the food service fund, in the amount of $40,000. Item K, we are closing a couple of accounts. The library account and the National Junior Honor Society, and then we are taking those particular net proceeds and moving them to the respective buildings, student accounts. Item L, transfer to the termination benefit fund in the amount of $75,000. Item N, grant application acceptances. Whenever we receive these grants, whether it be state, federal, or local, we're required to present them to you, the board, for consideration. Yes, sir.
What are the ODE grants?
So the school climate account, the grant that we received from the state of Ohio, that is a grant based on positive, what the state refers to as PBID, which is positive behavior intervention services. Basically, those monies are used by the school district to support students' behavioral and emotional needs. So Mrs. Bowers requested the funds. That takes a match of $30,000, and we received $29,080 because the state has some direct subsidy for this. 120 bucks. So those proceeds will be managed by Mrs. Bowers. Next item are gifts and donations. Several individuals and organizations generously donate to the school district, and those can be found Item O for the board's considerations are student activities, purposes, goals, and proposed budgets for the current fiscal year, and those can be found under consider vote. And those include proposed budgets.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins, good job. And now we move on to the superintendent's report brought to you by Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I am reporting back on the comments made at the last board meeting. We had 3 speakers that spoke at that board meeting. The first one, Mrs. McQuiggan, had mentioned concern about the robbery at the nearby bank in Eastlake and wanting to know how we could do better. We had provided some responses at the meeting that I'll just reiterate. The police do have certain protocols in place that they use already. They have phone numbers for the latchkey people, and their current protocol is to call Mr. Thompson if they feel there is a threat to our students, which they do on a regular basis, whether it's before or during breakfast. The second speaker was Mrs. Reed, and she had commented on Mr. Thompson's supplemental contract, wondering if he was going to be receiving that moving forward. A response was given at that meeting that Mr. Thompson will not receive a supplemental contract for the operations position once his current contract expires. Mrs. Reed also requested Mr. Thompson's evaluation, as certain pages that were provided before were difficult to read, so that was provided and sent to Mrs. Reed as well. And Mrs. Reed finally commented on the superintendent contract being renewed when teaching contracts are not, and again, a response was given at the meeting that there was some confusion regarding the salary schedule versus length of contracts. And then the third speaker was Mr. Vinya, and he had commented on not receiving a phone call from the previous month's meeting. I know Mr. Thompson did call and talk to Mr. Vinya after the board meeting and was able to answer his questions and to his satisfaction. So that is the report from last month's comments.
Thank you. And now your resolutions.
All right. Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. The first item for your consideration is the Lake County ESC agreement. And this is a service agreement between the Lake County ESC and the school district for us to contract both some cooperative programs as well as some particular services to support our staff and students here at the district. And so this is something that we bring up annually, and so that is the first item for your consideration.
Thank you. You have heard Mr. Murphy's recommendation. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam President,
Mrs.
I
Paczynski.
make a motion to pass resolution 5A, Lake County ESC Service Agreement.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 5A, Lake County ESC Service Agreement. Is there any discussion? Hearing now, Mr. Perkins, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Paczynski?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Ernst?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes. Motion is carried. Mr. Murphy?
Madam President, the second item for your consideration is the Lake County Board of Developmental Disabilities and Deepwood renewal letter. This is a renewal of their lease at Washington Elementary. It was initially a 3-year agreement, then we had a renewal last year, and this is a second renewal after that initial 3-year agreement. This will be the last one that we can do like this, and then we would have to renegotiate.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. You have heard recommendation. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern.
I make the motion to approve item 5B, Lake County Board of Developmental Disabilities Deepwood lease renewal letter.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Dr. Beal. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve Lake County Board of Developmental Disabilities Deepwood lease renewal letter. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Perkins, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal? Yes. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam President. The next item for your consideration is the Extended Standards Professional Learning Agreement. This is an agreement between the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio with the school district to continue providing professional development to our teaching staff on the extended learning standards. I'd like to commend Mrs. Bowers on her work in this area. She has spearheaded this, and it's been very well received by our teaching staff. Hence why we want to continue with extending the contract so they can continue to work with our staff next school year.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We're looking at item 5C, Extended Standards Professional Learning Agreement with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones?
I motion to approve item 5C, Extended Standards Professional Learning Agreement with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Madam President?
Dr. Diaz? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 5C, the Extended Standards Professional Learning Agreement. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Ferguson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes. Motion is carried. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam President. The next item for your consideration is the Illuminate Education Agreement. This is to extend our license agreement with Illuminate. Illuminate has been used this year and proven to be a very valuable tool for our teachers. And this time I would like to recognize Mrs. Cameron and her department for their work with Illuminate and working with our teaching staff on utilizing that as a tool to help guide our understanding of assessments and have that inform instruction. So it's much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We are looking at item 5D, the Illuminate Education Agreement. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Beal?
I move that we pass item 5B, Illuminate Education Agreement.
Thank you, Dr. Beal. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern?
I will second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 5B, the Illuminate Education Agreement. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam President. The next item for your consideration is the WESEP, which is the Willoughby Eastlake Classified Professionals, ratification of the tentative agreement. We had a very collaborative and productive negotiations last month with WESEP, and I thought both sides were very thoughtful in bringing issues to the table and brainstorming solutions. And I'd like to recognize Mrs. Knack and extend my appreciation to her for her work throughout that negotiations as well as her team.
Thank you. Back at you.
Thank you.
We are looking at item 5E, ratification of the tentative agreement with the Willoughby Eastlake Classified Professionals. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Paczynski?
I'd like to make a motion to approve 5E, the ratification of the tentative agreement with the Willoughby Eastlake Classified Professionals.
Thank you, Mrs. Paczynski. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones?
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we ratify item 5E, the tentative agreement with that we ratify. No, the ratification of the tentative agreement with the Willoughby Eastlake Classified Professionals. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam President. The next item for your consideration is an amendment to the OC 159 and 163 agreements. Those, actually, I believe were passed last month. That's our food service and our custodial maintenance contracts. And after going through negotiations with WESEP that I just mentioned and previously with our teachers union, we had discovered two items. One would be life insurance benefits, and the other would be the insurance waiver when somebody doesn't take benefits with our district to be different from negotiating with the other two groups, and we felt it would be important to keep those consistent with these groups as well. So that's what the amendment is for.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We're looking at item 5F, amendment to the OC Local 159 and Local 163 agreement. Is there a motion?
Madam President, may I make a motion to pass item 5F, amendment to OC Local number 159, local number 163.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Jones. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 5F, amendment to the OC Local agreements. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, it would be 159 and 163. That's what it should be.
It's just different.
This is what's wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just a typo. Thank you, Brian. Mr. Jones? Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parker, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Kaminsky?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes. Motion is carried. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam President. The next item for your consideration is our annual membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association. This is something that gets renewed each year, and it's for not only our students in high school, but our students starting in 7th grade and up. So this is just the annual renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We're looking at item 5G, the 2019-2020 membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern?
I make the motion to approve item 5G, 2019-2020 membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Dr. Beal? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the renewal of the Ohio High School Athletic Association membership. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Perkins, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam President. The next item for your consideration, next few items actually. First one is Power of the Pen field trip request. This is for students at Willoughby Middle School who have qualified for state finals, and that will be at the College of Whistler on May 23rd and 24th, so it's after school's out. And I'd like to just mention that Kathy Stalzer, who has set up, has done a great job preparing our students for that event. The next item is the North and South Yearbook field trip request. This is to Kenyon College, July 22nd through the 24th. This is basically a workshop to help them learn some new strategies to make improvements to the yearbook. And again, we have Jackie Palladino from North and Rihanna McChesney from South are the advisors, and they have done an excellent job creating these keepsakes and trying to make improvements each year. The next item for your consideration is the advanced French students field trip request. This is to Montreal and Quebec City, Canada. This is actually for March 23rd through March 27th of next year, which actually coincides with our spring break. And Megan Jones is the person who has organized this learning experience for students and is making that proposal. And lastly is the personnel agenda. And just as a reminder that all persons that are employed pending receipt of the satisfactory records from the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, the Ohio Department of Education, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have a couple people in the House today that we're recognizing. One sort of new face, but not really, and one not a new face at all. And so first I just want to recognize Megan Watson, who's been the assistant principal at Longfellow and TJ. she will be the next principal at Longfellow Elementary. I saw her looking very closely at the pictures up there, making sure everything was just right, ready to go, right?
We saw him while cleaning the windows today. It was like hot news in the office. It was like, look, we're cleaning windows. It's awesome.
But Megan has just done an outstanding job for us the last couple of years, and really having a difficult job with being the assistant principal traveling between two buildings, and I know Lisa can attest to that as well. So we're very excited to have her in this position. And also, here tonight, I would like to recognize Mr. Robert Stolman as the Coordinator of Strategic Relationships. And this was probably the most interesting process that I've had to go through since I've been in this district and done all the interviewing and all the hiring, because it was just a position that obviously has been newly created, and one that has a lot of different aspects to the job coming together for one job. And so when Steve and I started out, just the whole application process and the interview process and looking at all the candidates, we weren't even sure if there was a candidate that existed that could actually do this job. And but as we went through the process, we were very impressed with Mr. Stolman's credentials, as he comes from the business world, as well as having that strong theater background, as he's done an amazing job with our program at South, as evident by this weekend's Dazzle Awards that you'll be attending. Is it Connor?
Yeah, it's Connor Palace.
Connor Palace. And
We're nominated for 9 out of 11 awards.
9 out of 11, so tremendous good luck with that. And so, it's Mr. Stolman.
Thank you.
Sure.
We are already done with K, so we're moving to meeting notification. And the next meeting of this Board of Education, the next regular meeting of this Board of Education will be on Monday, May 13, 2019, right here. Oh, that's today. Why am I reading the wrong thing? Sorry. Oh, because I don't have it all the way. Here's what I am. June 10th. June 10th, 7 p.m. right here on the first floor of the Wogies, the Board of Education, at 7 p.m. And now I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Madam President,
Mrs. Zerman.
I make the motion to approve item 7A, adoption of the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mrs. Zerman. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Wojcicki. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the consent calendar. Is there any discussion?
Just as a side note, I think one of us needs to travel to Montreal. I'm doing that, so I'm good.
I'm done.
And we're not after any other discussion? I'm trying to keep the meeting engaged. No, hearing none. Mr. Ferguson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Herman?
Yes.
Mrs. Blanchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes, motion is carried. Press review? No one from the press is here. I would just like maybe Mr. Murphy to say a word about the strange thing that happened and sad thing that happened in our district this afternoon and our concerns with it.
Absolutely. Our thoughts and prayers certainly go out to two families from Royal View Elementary. We had a very unfortunate thing happen today where students were left, they were leaving the bus, and normal procedure followed. The arm of the bus goes out to alert traffic that, the lights are on and flashing, and the bus is stopped. Students are exiting, and unfortunately when the two Royal View students, two of the students that exited were struck by a car tonight, and they went to the hospital. I did have a chance to go see them after school before the meeting and talk with their families. So our thoughts and prayers to them. Wilwick Police and Fire were outstanding as always on the scene, helping. I've spoken with the mayor, and I know he's been working with the police chief. It was an unfortunate hit and run situation, so they were working to find who did this. So that's, I think, all I know at this point. But most importantly, of course, our thoughts are with those two elementary students, their families.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. With that being said, we're looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Jones? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting at